let's walk you through my entire system, literally everything that I do to sign weekly 4,000 all the way to $30,000 clients into my online coaching business, where I focus on teaching people brand strategy, messaging, and really kind of advanced marketing to be able to attract higher quality leads. I'm really excited to walk you through these things because, I've talked a lot about a lot of these things, over the last episodes and over the years, and kind of giving you some insight into some of the things that we do. But I kind of wanted to go a little bit more specific into the whole strategy and what we focus on so that you can go ahead and kind of see what you're doing in your business and how this implements or how this applies maybe in a much more powerful way. So I'm definitely really excited about this and really walking you through everything. This has been an evolution. First, before I kind of jump in, this has been an evolution because I've been in the online coaching space or in the online marketing business space, however we wanted to call it, since 2016. So it's been a few years, and a lot of iterations of the work that I'm doing have come as a result from that. Literally, if you go back to my original first pieces of content from 2016, you're going to really notice, and hopefully you don't, because it's very cringe-worthy, by the way, but you're going to notice that there's a lot of things in there that can be easily connected to a lot of the things that I talk about today and what I do today. So this is the evolution of that, of me really staying focused in the work that I do and really focusing on what's needed to be able to attract better leads and for me to grow my business, right? When I started my business in 2016, or at least this version of my business, well, not actually exactly this version. I'll explain why. I was doing web design. So a lot of the work that I was doing was much more focused on, yes, messaging. Messaging has always been a big part of it, but also branding and web design and web development and all these different things. Now, my business today, I don't necessarily do as much web design. We still do it as an add-on or as a bonus sometimes in our programs, but my main focus is on messaging. And what I was looking for in the beginning was to be able to attract better quality clients or attract clients, period. I think that when you begin, what you want is clients, and that's what I wanted. And I invested a lot of money in coaching and in mentorship and all these different things to be able to learn different systems. But what happened was, as I'm sure that you might relate, is that I kept on coming on across walls, right? I kept on coming across systems that didn't feel like they were me, that didn't feel really connected. I've talked about this extensively before, the old way of doing sales, this very high pressure way of doing things where it's who do you have to sell to be able to enroll into my program, and just this high pressure way of doing things and being vague in marketing and not really sharing a lot about your program, and all of that never felt correct to me or never felt right. And I just went deep into this journey to really figure out how to communicate effectively, and that led me to eventually turn my business into basically that, teaching people how to communicate effectively, how to explain to your audience what you do in a way that really captures them in. So with that in mind, I want to walk you through a little bit of what my system looks like. And obviously, before I go into the specifics of the marketing part, I want to speak at least broadly about the messaging part as well, because that's equally, if not more important than anything else that I'm doing, right? So again, there's a few different things that we need to focus on if we want to grow our business. And one of the major things is understanding your audience and understanding who your actual ready to invest audience is. Who are your people? Not who are some of the people, kind of my audience, like my demographic group, my kind of avatar. It's really going deeper to understand, well, who exactly is my ideal audience and how do I speak to these people? How do I communicate my value? How do I communicate so that I attract the right people in? So I capture the type of people who will be able to afford whatever you charge, whether it's 5K or 10K or 20K or 100K or 1K. You need to be able to understand who your people are so that you can craft your message around speaking to those people. And that's one piece of what we focus on and what I focus on in my business, right? So for everything that I'm going to explain to you today, this whole system, this whole process to work, there has to be clarity around your actual audience. And, I've talked about this quite a bit, and I have a whole training that explains it at readytoinvestclients.com. You can find it as well in the box below. Obviously I go into explaining this in quite a bit of detail because this is what I do. But as long as we're speaking to the ready to invest client, everything else works correctly. Like if you're growing your audience with the wrong people, not so smart. So funny, because I had a call today with somebody that was telling me that she has booked literally in the last 4 months, over 400 calls, none of which were ideal clients. I think that almost 400 of them no-showed on the call. So that should give you an idea of like the importance of speaking to the right audience, right? So we have the right audience defined. The second thing that we need to have defined is our angle of mastery. And for me, the angle of mastery is your angle, your unique perspective, your expertise, and how you communicate what you do in a way that really sounds different, and the way that really gives people or answers the question why it will work for your audience, like why your process will work for your audience. So there's a lot of things that I go into that. I have another episode that goes deeply into explaining what the angle of mastery is and how it works and all the details. But those two things are the core of what I do. And then obviously the third part of what I do for my system to work is really having a lot of clarity around what makes me personally as a personal brand unique. What are my strong points? For example, a lot of the things that I do in my marketing is talk about a little bit of my lifestyle, right? So I talk about how I had 3 little girls, I have 3 daughters. I talk about how I only work from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this is something that matters to me. And I bring those elements. I'm from Venezuela. There's like these little Spanglish elements into what I do. If you're in my email list, you know that every email I start with hola and I sign with con amor, which means with love. And these are things that I do on purpose because they're part of my brand. They're part of who I am. Everything, right? If you're watching this on video, my background, like my literal background, my office, everything is like, okay, this is what represents me. It's colorful, it's fresh, it's lively. And, this is how I visually show up in the world, right? If you go to my website, you will see there's a lot of color, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of things that I do. Those are things that are important for me and that really represent who I am as a brand, because this is who I am as a brand. My thing isn't me drinking champagne first class, traveling to Paris on the weekend because that felt like a fun thing to do. I'm sure that it is, and that's something that I would love to do, but I have 3 kids and I can't necessarily do that. And that's not necessarily what I want to do anyways, right? So that's not my brand. And me understanding what's the vibe that I'm selling and what's the energy that I'm showing up with and like how am I bringing these things together is really important for my business and what I do and what I represent. So taking those things into account, let's walk you through my funnel and what that looks like, my system, my marketing strategy, my magnetic marketing system, whatever you want to call it, right? I call it the client magnet system. You can call it whatever you want to call it, right? So I begin with my content creation that is focused on audience growth. And there's 2 things that I do for audience growth. Number 1, I do ads. I run ads. I've always ran ads in my business. And part of the reason why I like running ads in my business is that I like to have not everything, what's the saying, like all the eggs in one basket. I like to have multiple eggs in multiple baskets. I like to have different traffic sources. I don't like focusing only on one place, because you never know what could happen with that place. And, things change, algorithms change, strategies change, and even my mood can change, right? Like, I love doing organic. We'll talk about my organic strategy in a second. I love doing organic, but, I will also have moments in my life where I don't want to do organic. Like, for example, this summer I was in Colombia. My dad had a kidney transplant and I was very much present with my family, and therefore I couldn't necessarily be very active online sharing stuff or whatever, creating content. So that's when I could rely a little bit more on running ads. So I run ads, and then organically I write and share a lot of content. My personal main places where I focus on are my Facebook profile and on TikTok. I will share my Facebook content to Instagram, but I'm not personally an Instagram girly as much. It's just whatever. That's just how I am. That being said, I have clients that follow this exact system that I'm going to explain to you in a second, and they do it successfully on LinkedIn. They do it successfully on Instagram. They do it successfully on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok. So all the different platforms, right? So I have clients that succeed with it in different places. And for me, one of the things that I really focus on is making sure that you focus on the right place, depending on who you are, not necessarily only where your audience is, because at the end of the day, your audience is going to be everywhere. So, so for me personally, I use my Facebook profile and I use TikTok, and I'm much more active on my Facebook profile. TikTok, I have my moments. I have moments when I'm excessively active, and there are moments when I'm not. By the way, if you do follow me on TikTok, it's Fabi Paolini with no periods in the middle. If you get a DM from me trying to sell you into anything or crypto anything, that is not me, my friend. I do not DM people. It's part of what I don't do unless you ask me to DM you. And I'll explain that in just a second. So just in case there is like a fake account out there, I'm Fabi Paolini, just like that everywhere. So anyways, I post content on Facebook and on TikTok primarily. I share it also on Instagram, and sometimes I will be active on LinkedIn, but mostly Facebook is my place, right? So I have different categories of content that I focus on Facebook. It's very intentional. None of it is random. None of it is like, oh, well, I'm going to just, I woke up this morning and I came up with this random post that I wanted to randomly share. I mean, yes, that can happen, but for the most part, there's a very clear strategy behind what I'm sharing. Now, in every piece of content that I'm sharing, and actually before I jump into that, I mentioned how I like having ads for when I'm in a moment where I'm like off because my life, or I'm traveling, or whatever is going on, my kids, or I'm sick, or whatever that may be. But the reason why I love doing organic is that as a business owner, my brand and my message will consistently keep on evolving, right? And I will come up with new concepts, and I will come up with new ideas, and I will come up with new like paradigm shifts and things that I want to share. And you can't do that necessarily as quickly with an automated funnel. So yes, you can be running ads, but if your message is changing every day or evolving every day, that can't necessarily be incorporated into your ads, and not really recommended at all. Like it can be incorporated after a few months, but not immediately, right? And for me, I come up with a lot of ideas. If you follow me on Facebook, you know that I come up with a lot of ideas. I'll leave, by the way, below the link so that you can add me or follow me, add me as a friend or follow me on Facebook profile so that you can see what I'm talking about. I share a lot of content, a lot of ideas. There's a lot going on. And that evolves consistently because I will have a call and I will have an idea. I will book an assessment. I'll explain this in a second. And I will have an idea and I'll be like, oh my God, this is really powerful. And I want to talk about it. So I'll create content around what happens in my day-to-day life. And that's why I love organic, because I can bring what's in the mood, what my energy is bringing to me. But there is a system behind that. There is a very specific process, very specific things that I do in my content creation that are very intentional. I'm not randomly creating content. I'm creating content knowing exactly what I'm posting, what type of content I'm posting, what the goal is, what I'm focused on, and what I'm trying to sell in the post. And I'm not talking about what I'm literally trying to sell, but like, what's the idea that I'm trying to sell? What's the goal behind what I'm sharing, right? So that's where everything begins in my organic content creation mostly. And this is the most powerful part probably of what I do, and where most of my clients come from. Actually, we've had months where we've had 100K cash collected from organic content only. And this is why it's so powerful, having that energy that you can bring in, and having a system that does that. And this is literally what I teach my clients how to do as well, how to create that system so that you're not necessarily depending on the algorithm, because there's strategies that you can follow that will kind of bypass the algorithm, and give you, ways to stand out. What you don't want to do is create noise. You don't want to just create content for the sake of creating content. It's not 3 secrets to lose weight. sort of content, right? 3 secrets to be more productive. That type of content is not going to lead to anything ever, like a sale. Very rarely is it going to lead into anything. This is deeper light bulb moment type of content, right? And that's really important to me. And now that doesn't mean that I post content every single day. It depends on my inspiration usually and how active I am. I tend to be very active, but it depends. Usually it's going to be around 3 posts that I will share per week. And those posts are very specific and really powerful into walking people through some of these ideas and walking them through my angle of mastery. So here's where that comes in, right? For this to work, you have to understand your angle of mastery, and you need to know how to incorporate that into your message, into your post, into the content that you're sharing. And at the same time, it has to be focused at the right audience, because if you're too broad and not really speaking to anybody, your content is going to get completely drowned out. And that's obviously not what we want. So very clear content to a very clear audience. Everything is very cleared out. And that angle of mastery is the most powerful thing that can be included within that content. So call to action for almost every piece of content that I write is to invite people to my 20-minute mini webinar. I call it a mini webinar. I've talked about this as well in other episodes in the past, although I will be doing another one talking about webinar once again soon. But essentially, my 20-minute mini webinar is an evolution of me learning a lot about webinars over the years. I've been doing webinars since 2016. I learned it from one of the, I think, initially one of the best companies that teach webinars, but my system has completely changed, is completely different from the one that I learned, right? Where the typical webinar is more like a 45-minute, hour-long webinar, and it's more walking people through the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things and inviting people in a strategy session. What I do is a little bit different. What I do is spend the whole 20 minutes proving my point, like proving my big idea, proving my angle of mastery. And so everything in that 20-minute video is crafted at delivering high level value. Again, if you haven't seen it, go to readytoinvestclients.com and you're going to be able to watch it. Pay attention to what I'm saying here, and you're going to really understand how I do this, right? So essentially, I have that 20-minute video, very powerful, very much, again, pre-qualifying people. I would rather let people leave the funnel if they're not a good fit. Like, I don't want you to book in if you're not a good client for me. I don't want you to book in if you're not ready for me yet. I don't want you to book in if you're not my person, period. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time at all. Again, I did a whole episode on this last week, I think. So what's important here is that 20-minute webinar is really focused on proving my big idea, my angle of mastery, my premise, my angle, my point of view, my way of doing things. And that's what I spend the whole 20 minutes doing. Now, there's a very strategic way in which I do that. Everything is very purposeful. Exactly what happens in the first 5 minutes is defined, what happens in the next 10 minutes. So everything is done in a very clear way. When you only have 20 minutes, you don't have a lot of time to really deliver value. So it has to be so valuable that you want people to stick to it all the way until the end. And that's what we focus on, really making sure that people will be like, whoop, from the beginning to end, like glued to that thing for 20 minutes. So organic content, call to action is inviting people to watch the training. What I tend to do is I will have people comment below the post, the word training or the word ready or the word yes or the word go, whatever that may be. And when they do that, I will then send them a DM asking them for their email. So in the past, I would use to send people like the link directly to sign up in the landing page. But when I did that, people would not sign up. So what I do instead is I will ask people, what's the best email I can send the training to? And they will give me their email and I will manually add them into my convert kit, which is what I use. And therefore, I'm kind of guaranteeing that they're signing up for the training. So I basically have like a 100% conversion the sales page here, meaning 100% of the people that ask for the training will now get their training because of that. And this allows me to really grow my email list by quite a bit of people every single month. Like, for example, in the past month, I've grown my email list by around 80 people just by doing this. So I create this great content and I invite people, hey, I have this training that teaches you how to do that. Comment below, they comment below, I DM them what's the best email that I can send this to, and that's it, right? And then I send them the video, and then there's a whole other process that goes with that, but that's what happens. So 20-minute video, high level, angle of mastery, speaking to the right audience. Again, this isn't your typical 45-minute webinar where you're talking about like, does this sound like you and blah, 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 blah. None of that. This is high level, let's go, value. Really high value. Again, watch the video if you haven't. And if you have, rewatch it, paying attention to what I'm explaining right now, because it's going to make even more sense to you. At the end of that video, what I do is I invite people on a 15-minute assessment with me. And again, in the last episode, I explained what happens in this assessment a little bit more. But once again, this is a pre-qualification process. This isn't about, I want to get people on a sales call. This is about, I want to get the right people on a sales call. So that 15-minute call isn't an actual sales call. It's a call where I pre-qualify somebody and determine whether or not they're going to be a good fit. And for me, this is important because we're going to make weekly sales no matter what. So if you don't buy from me, that's not going to break my business. If you buy from me, that's not going to make my business. So my goal isn't to get more people on the phone. My goal is to get the right people on the phone. So that 15-minute call is more of an assessment call for me where I can evaluate if they're a right fit. And what I do on the call, again, I did a whole episode on this last week, but what I do on the call is I will go in and deliver value. I will look at somebody's messaging and I will tell them this over here is off. This is speaking to the wrong audience. This is what's attracting this type of people. So I'm doing a really deep diagnostic on that call to help people understand what is off with their messaging and what they need to optimize to be able to attract better quality leads. If you want to book that call, go to brandmessagesession.com, by the way, and that call is with me. So at the end of the 15-minute call, I will tell somebody if they're a good fit. Let's hop on a sales call. Let me get you to talk to Eileen from my team. She'll walk you through everything. She'll explain all the details. Our programs range from 4K all the way to 30K. So I book them in when they're a good fit, obviously. And then there's a whole other nurture process that goes behind that, because then once they book the call, I also send them a document that walks them through my entire program, price points, payment plans, well, programs, because it's more than one program. Obviously, I have 4 main programs that I sell to. Well, it's like a group program and a one-on-one program. And then there's like sub phases between both of them. So anyways, so I will send them through like a document that has absolutely everything involved. And then I will send them over to Eileen, who has the sales call with them, and then goes through the details, answers their questions, shows them the options, goes back into the backend and shows them what that looks like, and then enrolls people in there. And that's what we do. Very simple, very easy process. And this is what that entire system always looks like, right? So I'm kind of creating organic content that speaks to, again, angle of mastery, my ideal audience. We're inviting people on the 20-minute webinar. 20-minute mini webinar, I probably re-record once every 6, probably 8 months, mostly because during that whole time, my message will keep on evolving and there will be new things that I will come up with that are going to make it even more powerful, and we'll do a better job at pre-qualifying my audience once again. So I will come in, I will re-record, I will clean things up a little bit, and then I will launch it. And then about 6 to 8 months later, once again, I'll come in and do that. To give you an example, I had a version in April and I re-recorded in October. So May, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, 6 months, about 6 months between one and the other. And in the middle of that, my focus is on, doing my organic content, sometimes going on podcasts, and also promoting my my 20-minute mini webinar and all the things, right? So obviously, I'm kind of giving you a very big picture of this system. I do have a course that walks you through the entire system and explains to you exactly what this looks like. share screen, I show the details, I talk about follow-up emails, I talk about what like the structure of the mini webinar, I talk about everything. You can find that at fabipaolini.com/system. I will link it below. It's a $27 course that literally shows you my entire system. So I really urge you to look at that because it goes through all the details in much more in depth than I'm doing here. Obviously, it's like a complete course for it, with everything, right? Like I will show you how we grow our audience. I will show you like what the structure for the content that we create organically. I walk you through the structure for the webinar as well, the structure for the 15-minute call. So it's like much more advanced and explaining like how to implement this into your own business. So I urge you to go to fabipaolini.com/system to find that program as well. And that's it. This is what the system looks like. This is what I've been doing for the last few years, again, since 2016. This is the evolution of that, the evolution of the webinar that I was taught and taught by several programs that I've rolled over the years. And then I basically took that and broke it completely apart. And I was like, let me cut all of the fluff out and let me focus on proving my point. Let me focus on showing my people my angle of mastery and getting the right people on. So that is it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, if this resonated, if this is something that you were curious about. Remember my bunch of call to actions today, fabipaolini.com/system is where I have a $27 program that walks you through everything in much more detail than I did today. ReadyToInvestClients.com has the 20-minute webinar so that you can sign up for that as well and watch the actual video and see what I do. And then brandmessagesession.com is where you can book the 15-minute session with me, where you and I will talk and I will kind of look at your own messaging and show you how this applies to you. Hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you all in a next episode.